Hello everyone and welcome to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. I'm your host Ads Lyson. On the podcast today, John Thompson returns with some issues he feels he didn't address in the first podcast. In this episode, we delve into issues such as PTSD, mental health and depression, and how these issues affect the everyday person, not just military personnel. Please enjoy a Grumpy Surfer conversation with my good friend, John Thompson. John Thompson, welcome to the Grumpy Surfer podcast. Nice to have you back, mate.
It's good to see you again, mate. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I thought, well, we've had 12, this will be the 12th episode, so I thought we need to get you back. And
yeah, the last one was really good fun, great conversation, great reminiscing, and bringing back memories of the life that we've lived, and re-remembering some things that I'd forgotten. So it was good.
Yeah,
Great to see you as well.
Lots of positive feedback from it. I mean, you've had some as well, and I've had a few over like Instagram and those sort of things. It's really nice to listen to people and say that, you know, they actually enjoy listening to people's stories about, you know, conflict or whatever they're going through, as opposed to sort of bigger personalities.
Absolutely. I mean, I had so my mum watched it obviously because she loves me and she wants to. She wants to hear the stories, and it kind of upset her understanding, you know, what real conflict is and the things that you go through, but you don't necessarily talk about with people who are outside your peer group. And then the other one who was quite significant was my auntie, who I universally respect. She's a very intelligent, beautiful woman. And she was blown away by oh my God, John, I didn't realise what you guys go through. And I think that's one of the great things about this medium, is that just regular people who do what they do, and it could be military, it could be a fireman, an ambulance person, anyone who works at NHS now with this COVID thing, can talk about the experiences that they have. And then everybody else can see and understand the things that each and every one of us goes through. And in that understanding, they can maybe have a little bit more empathy and a little bit more patience and a little bit more understanding, and that's got to be a good thing.
A lot of stuff, especially, you know, I know we're going to talk about mental health in this because it's one of the issues that, you know, you're quite pressing with, is, you know, people need to talk about their issues and not bottle them up, especially, you know, gone are the days being a bloke. One of the things we were, well, not taught, but I think it's kind of like a legacy where you just kind of, you get on, you do your day's work, you go home and you suck it up. You go to sleep, you deal with it, you know, you're a man, this is the thing you need to do. I think today, where society is a lot more expressive and they like to talk about things, older guys, guys that are our age, were kind of catch-22, we're stuck in the middle of it, where we were like, I don't really like talking about it.
We're kind of this interim generation between our parents' generation, who feel the effects from their parents' generation and like world wars, depression, you know, famine, starvation in this country, and real austerity, outside toilets and newspaper for toilet paper and that kind of stuff. And us being the precursor to the PlayStation generation. We're kind of in the middle, where we have the echo and effects of the past and the characteristics of society there mixed in with modern day society and the transition. You know, I suppose it happened with the internet and mobile phones. That's where the real change went. So we still remember the times when there was no internet, whereas the generation below us, all they've known is the internet and the expression of ideas and the proliferation of academic thought that everybody has access to, and the fact that they can engage with anyone, I mean, we spoke about this before, anyone in the world at any minute of the day instantly. Whereas we will still remember the time where if you fancied a girl, you might have to write her a letter and then sort of post it through a letterbox, cherry knock and run off, and hopefully you get a good response. Never always happened, like maybe once out of a million times, but
my head's too big, I never got the girl.
Can go through the gate.
Yeah.
So yeah, we live in these times, and I think one of the things is really important is in that concept of understanding each other, it allows for people to have differing points of view, but if people try to understand each other, they don't have to agree with another person's point of view, but what they can do is listen to what they say and then respect what they've said, and then that opens up an avenue for change in people's minds. So you should never shout down somebody who's got an opposing point of view. You should just try and understand it, and then if you can then explain your point of view in a cohesive way, then maybe you bring them along for the ride. One of the things that I find most troubling is, like I said before, this need that males have. You know, the most dangerous thing for our society is a large population, or even a small population of unhappy males, because we're so physically dangerous to the rest of the population that an unbalanced and unhappy male can do so much damage inside a family group. And you see this in the news and COVID, and it's not just males. The whole family dynamic's difficult right now, but it's males that can have the greatest physical impact and psychological impact as well. So if people can try and understand each other a little bit more, then maybe we can mitigate that. And what you can do is create, I mean, you surfing, so you're out all the time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or any type of martial arts where you can take the fundamental characteristic of aggression and then put it into a controlled box so that males can, and those females who wish to do it, they can take that aggression, get it out in a balanced, disciplined, organised way, and then you create these happy people. And what limits does a happy person have? Well, I would advocate that a happy person has no limits in life whatsoever. And the sort of wave of velocity of and momentum of energy and enthusiasm and love and compassion, and the ability to pass on good characteristics from father to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, father to daughter, and all through generations, starts with happy people. So I think these podcasts that you're doing are a great mechanism to enable that to happen.
When talking about happiness, you need to kind of try and within yourself define what happiness is, or what makes you happy, because you know what makes me happy to what makes you is completely different. You definitely, if you're in your own sort of little bubble, you need to work that out, and if you don't work it out, you're never really going to find that niche to where you want to be happy. Mm-hmm. And like you say, whether you're finding it a pastime, whether it's reading certain genre of books, Netflix, something like that. But there also needs to be, I believe, there needs to be some sort of social interaction involved with it as well. Mm-hmm. Because it might be cool, like for me, going away on a surf trip on my own, absolutely amazing. But then who am I going to tell about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to have a little football with a face on it called Wilson. I'm going to talk to him, aren't I?
Life is a shared experience.
Yeah, so if you don't get that out there, and this is, you know, kind of where you're talking about mental health and mental states and talking to people about your issues, that if you don't get it out there, all it's going to be doing is stuck inside your cranium and bouncing inside your skull, and then you're like that. Well, there's no outlet for anything.
Yeah, I mean, your mind can be a pinball machine of insanity. Or, you know, at least it's got the capability for insanity. Popped something up on Facebook probably about a month ago, which was a Goggins sort of video. And I put a sort of my spin on it, and it's like, you have everything that you want in life. You just got to take the time to work out what it is that you want. And I'd probably contradict what you said of that we're vastly different. I would suggest that actually we're more similar than we actually think, in that, you know, you need to be loved, you need to be physically active, you need to have good mental health, you need to have a good diet, you need to sleep well. All those fundamentals are effectively the same, but it's just the little nuances, and that's where like deep thought comes in. So a bit of mindfulness is working out actually what makes you happy. And it might take a piece of paper where you write down, what do you want out of life? So I want to be out, and I want to be out with my family, and I like to be in the water, like yourself, me sea swimming and you surfing and all the other sports that you do. And I want to go out with the girls or go out with the boys, and I want to have that but it's working out at what level you want it. So in the younger days, you would go out and you'd get absolutely shit-faced. And that was hoof in. But actually, it wasn't hoof in, getting completely shit-faced. And now as older guys, you can't get shit-faced because it takes days and days to recover.
It hurts a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. You have 2 beers at night, you're like, God, that was bad.
2 beers. You haven't got a small body like I have.
Yeah. So it's, it's working out that you already have everything you want, and you've already got the capacity to achieve everything you want. The potential's there. It's just working out what you want. I mean, lots of people, this is a problem that we have in the West, is that, and it goes to something called an initiation, which is not the military sense of it, but there is a military aspect to it, because I think we've touched on this before, which was it's a journey to a goal that you've got to reach, set standards that you've got to reach, and once you've reached them, then you become part of a group. And that happens it's not just in military, it's everything. You apply for a job, you've got to answer a few questions, so you've got to reach that standard, and then you've got to get on with people, and then if you get on with people, you reach another level and you become a supervisor, and you go up and up. Whereas in the West, we've kind of lost the cultural initiation that you would find in more developed countries in the rest of the world, or in the eastern part of the world, where you actually become a man or you become a woman and there's a ceremony. Religions have that with christenings, like straight away. And I know Judaism has those sorts of things, and Islam as well, and all the other religions around the world. But we've kind of lost that. And in that loss of these achievable goals, where we reach these milestones in our life, that's where the confusion sets in. So we see a lot of unhappiness in the West when we have so much abundance. And I think it's really applicable when you talk about military guys. Because I was watching The Last Samurai the other day, and I was like, oh, brilliant. And then it made me think about Bushido and the Way of the Warrior and the mindset for the Way of the Warrior. And then that led me down a little path of, actually, we're so privileged in our journey. So it's a quote from a silly book, but it's not about what was it? It's not about the journey, but it's about the time in which it takes you to get onto that, to do that journey. So in that, what's the time it takes you? It's, if it takes you a long time to get there, you have a greater experience as you go in through that journey, rather than just getting to that point. So there's a failure is success. Have this long journey and you become a wiser, sager person. So actually, what makes you happy? Look at the older population. What do they look at? They don't care about money. They care about being with their family. They care about going out for walks. They care about smiling more because they know that time is limited. And what we have had in the military is this ground rush of intense experience over short periods of time that you can't get in any other facet of life. You have comradeship with your brothers and sisters in arms. You have austere moments where there's not enough food, or like we were talking before, one of the fobs that you were in, where you had to have bottled water, which didn't always come, and the water that you had from filters was horrible. It's just disgusting. Almost makes you sick taking a sip. You don't know whether your life's going to end. You don't know when your friend's life's going to end. You'll hear stuff on the radio where something, we were talking about that other PB where you wanted to go out and rescue them, but command was holding out. And then you're away from the people that you love, so you don't know what's going on with them. And then all of that time goes past and you've lived a life effectively in 6 months. Every facet of life to the most intense level in a short space of time. And then you do that multiple times, like both of us have and many of our comrades have, and then suddenly you come back and you're a little bit more sage-like. And I don't say that arrogantly, but you're a little bit more of in the deep thought space. And we're taught to think anyway in our jobs, but that deep thought space is where you actually find yourself philosophically rather than making the right decisions. You're like, what type of person do I want to be like? It's these hardships that ask you the questions of, who am I? What do I want to be like? how do I want to treat other people? What's fair and what's just? And the Stoics call it a virtuous life of justice, truth, honesty, self-control, discipline, and courage. You know, the courage to be able to have the self-discipline to focus, the courage to tell the truth when you need to be honest, to have control over your diet, your alcohol, or, you know, some people who would take recreational drugs or drug intake, the moderation of thrill seeking, moderation of exercise. You know, everything has to be done within a series of tolerances for you to live that good life. Because what you do now, like Marcus Aurelius says, not Marcus Aurelius, Maximus in Gladiator says, what we do now will echo for an eternity. Now, our conscious eternity ends at which we jump off this planet. So look after yourself now. Do the hard work now, the preparation to make the rest of your life better.
Yeah, I think, you know, I definitely agree with what you're saying, but some people would struggle with those thought processes because they haven't been given the guidance to mentally understand that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there are people that have done the same things as we have, same experiences, been in the depths of darkness with war and all that sort of thing, but mentally they probably, you know, they wouldn't pick up a book and read about philosophy, you know, read a Jordan Peterson book about, you know, how to guide your life, or guidance books, mm-hmm. you know, something like that, or The Secret, which is another good one to read, to give you good aspects and outlooks on life as well, to guide you. Mm-hmm. Unless they're into that, or they know people to help them with that, then those are the type of people that actually struggle quite a considerable amount. Now, living in the time like you're talking about, where we do have the internet, we have clips, we have Instagram, we have all the social media in the world. I think sometimes as well that can be a negative effect, where you're constantly pumped with this sort of information, telling you, because that's what it's doing. It's not guiding you, it's telling you this is what you must do, telling you this is how you must feel after you've done this. Mm-hmm. Some people don't want that.
I mean, it's really smart marketing, because, you know, essentially in this economic society which we call the West, we're assets to the people that make things. So, I mean, we'll all see on Facebook and things, hey, do you want to be a coach in 2 days? Do you want to do this? Oh, have you ever been unhappy? Yeah, it's tapping into the easy parts of understanding the sell. Hey, ads license, I don't know. Do you wish you were taller? Buy these new trousers. They'll make you taller. Or is your back hurting? Get this back correcting thing. Well, actually, it's a marketing tool, and we're all susceptible to it because we're always looking for the answer, but the answer's inside us. And I know this physically because I've got this degenerative disc disease and a couple of prolapsed discs, where I was on tramadol and diazepam for well over a year. I started sea swimming, started mindfulness and a bit of meditation, started looking at Stoic philosophy, and some Eastern Way of the Warrior kind of stuff, and read some Solzhenitsyn novels, and not all the way through. I read parts, then I jump to another ones. My focus is pretty poor, and what I found is that by me being more mindful, I don't need to take these painkillers anymore. I found alternate, natural ways of doing them. But you're right, not everybody has those, that I would call it mental agility, or it would be the definition of resilience for me. Not everybody's resilient or robust. And people would say, oh, what does robust mean? What does robust mean? Well, robust in my mind is somebody who's got the cognitive capacity to think their way out of situations. And the real issue is those who either haven't had a negative experience that has impacted them enough to think about what they're doing and how they're doing it. Lots of people still walk around thinking they're doing all right and don't look and reflect inwardly. And I think that is where the problem lies, because people don't like to look at themselves negatively. and they don't look after themselves. So one of the things in Jordan Peterson's book, I think it's the 3rd chapter, it's to look after yourself like you're somebody you care about. And the example he gives is, somebody's eating a poor diet or not exercising, have bad social interactions. Why don't you fix those? Oh, I don't want to do this diet. I don't want to have that self-control to do to help myself. But if their cat gets ill, they'll bend over backwards and walk across hot coals in order to help them. Well, look after yourself as well as you look after the cat. But it's getting to that point. So again, this fantastic podcast you set up, whoever listens to it, they need to, if it helps them, that is amazing. But if they can help other people, share it to your friends. If there's something in one of the things that these 12 podcasts so far, and hopefully there's hundreds and hundreds of more, does, is takes people's experience and just chat about them. And if you can glean something off it, be open-minded to new thoughts and ideas that you never thought about before. And if that can help you, then fantastic. Because I go back to the danger of an unhappy mind, whether it's male or female. I choose males because I know males. I've been one for 42 years, so I think I'm kind of an expert on them. I can't really talk about the female experience much. I have 2 daughters, but I'm not as expert or as concerned about them. Probably because I have 2 daughters, and I worry about them in society with potentially dangerous males walking around, as naturally as you would do as a father. But if you can find some focus and look inwardly, then your life will be so much better. But it's that journey, and everybody's got to come to that epiphanal revelation at their own time. But if they can come to that by listening to something like this or reading a book, ideal. They can get to that point sooner, and then the rest of their life is infinitely going to be longer and better. But if they don't, then they'll just crack on. And we're lucky, YouTube, you've got access to, I'm seeing physios, and I was talking to physios and nutritionists as well, because I've got my own ideas about nutrition. But the information's there. She doesn't know any more than I do, because I can just pop this on and then listen to the greatest nutritionists in the planet or physios on the planet and get all the information. So it's a great time. It's a great time to change the direction, because we're not at ground zero with our society. We can change our direction in a heartbeat. It doesn't take 15 years to change your future. It takes one moment, and that one moment can affect everyone.
It's those choices as well, because I sent it's kind of quite funny, I've talked about this the last couple of days. I sent an email the other day about physical performance. Compare this to the military. Back in the days when we were young Marines and corporals or whatever, to create a cohesive bond with people, you'd get up in the morning, you'd go and do some exercise. You'd go out and do a run, you'd do some press-ups and sit-ups with them, jump in a river or something like that. You do something together to create that bonding, but it's a continuous thing. So you do it like Monday to Friday or whatever. Mm-hmm. You do stuff together all of the time. So my point being is that I think somewhere along the line in the last 10 years, it's been lost in translation a little bit. And the reason why I say that is I don't see that many people doing, okay, granted we're in a bit of an awkward situation these days with like the COVID and we can't do things as groups. Mm-hmm. But I don't, even, before it, I was thinking the other day on a run, I don't see people out doing that anymore. And when I do talk to people about it or have the odd conversation, and it seems very cliche, is people's return comments are, I don't have time to do that. So I wrote this quite long email the other day, and people probably thought it was a rant. It wasn't. It was a
Maguire moment.
Yeah, it wasn't really meant to be like that.
Yeah.
But I used myself as an example where I said, I have to start work at, well, I don't have to. I start work at 8:30 in the morning. But before that, I come into work earlier and I do my exercise or whatever I have to do. If I've got to set something up, a circuit or something like that, I don't leave it to the last minute. I come in at 6, so I get up at like 5 or 4:30 and I come in. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is I make time to do these things. but people use the excuse that they don't have time to do these things because they're, in inverted commas, they're so busy doing their day-to-day job, whether it's a nurse or they're an IT specialist or they're a dustman or they're something like that. Well, my comeback to that was, we'll make time for it.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be fixated in what you're doing. And I love the poem, The Indispensable Man. If you've never read it, Google it, The Indispensable Man.
You sent it to me, didn't you? After we had a conversation, yeah.
And it basically suggests that if you get a bucket of water, fill it up to the top, you put your hand into it, and that's you in your job. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Put your hand into it, that's you in your job. That's how important that you think you are. Then take your hand out of that bucket, then what happens then? Well, it just fills back up again. And that's how important you are. You think you're more important than everybody else. Absolutely. So again, my point being is that making time to do something, even though, again, inverted commas, you think you're really busy, well, you're not. Is anyone going to die? No, they're not. So taking an hour out of your time to look after yourself, whether it is like what you're talking about there, reading the philosophy book, taking some time out to meditate, going for a walk, doing some exercise in the gym, you need to make that time for yourself. Otherwise, that's where the mental issues, I think, in my opinion, are going to come in and start affecting you.
I mean, that Indispensable Man poem is so profound in that when, in it says, when you take your hand out, the water ripples as you take it out. But very, very quickly, it settles back to its equilibrium state. So when you sent that to me, that was like, whoosh, what an amazing poem. Because what it means is actually you are indispensable. But what's not indispensable is your hand. So it's all about proper time management. So we've got this saying in the military, which is prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. And very military specific. Unless you're on exercise or on combat operations, there's this idea that work starts at 8:25 and you finish at 4:30. Well, it doesn't. Because we get paid, we're on call 24 hours a day. So we work 24 hours. So when I was doing lectures and things, I'd work all the way into the night until it's perfect. And I'd be up early to make sure it's prepared. Because one, you don't want to look inadequate and shit in front of people. And you want to look like you've done your preparation, and you want to deliver a good product. Because you also want that feedback from everyone to go, yeah, you've done really well. And you're actually maintaining this ethos, which is determination, humility, the 4 core values. I think it's excellence, integrity, humility, and self-discipline. But really what you're trying to do is provide the best, because you join in organisations, that's the best. But when it comes to, I don't have enough time, that is absolute bullshit. So I'm a single dad, which I said before, single dad of 2 young children. My little angel Sophie turned 7 today, and my little boy, who's exactly like me, is 5, and then my eldest daughter's 20, and she's gone back to university. That's a full-time job. But also, I've got my other job, and then I've got to do my own phys. I mean, I'm kind of lucky now. I've got a year extra, and basically I've just got to do pre-hab for my operation, so pre-exercises to make my core strong, have the operation, then I'll do rehab. But also in that time, I've got to set up my future. We'll go on to this in a minute, which, like leaving the core and how that's affected me, which is substantial. I've got to prepare myself for the future because I've got responsibilities to those children. But like the 3rd chapter in 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote for Chaos, in Jordan Peterson, I've got to look after myself as if I care about myself. So you've got to make that time. There's a great thing on YouTube, and it's called The Art of Improvement, and it's like this guy talking away, and there's the doodles things come up, and I think it's amazing. It's really easy to get. If you want to do that as a video log or whatever, you can. I think they're 50% off because of COVID. But in it, he talks about this guy called Cal Newport, who wrote a book called Deep Work, and in that, Cal Newport talks about how long your mind can concentrate on. So deep work, concentrate fully on something. He said the mind, you can't concentrate all day. The mind can concentrate for 4 hours maximum. And then it gets exhausted. because your brain's using huge amounts of energy. And so what he says, what you need, one of the ideas, one of the principal procedures that you can use is you break your day down into 30-minute blocks. Buy a diary. At work we get these banner diaries, the A4 ones, and every page is a 30-minute block. So what you do is you write down what you've got to do. So don't write down what you've got to do and then prioritize all those things. Write down the priority in which things need to be done. So that's you thinking a little bit. And you do that the day before, the night before, and then you're already squared for the next day. Casey Neistat on one of his shows how he manages his time. He uses these little dominoes and he puts them down. He's getting 3-4 hours sleep. But in it, he's achieving everything. So he gets his deep work done in the morning, straight away when he first wakes up. He wakes up at 4 or 5. You don't have to do that. But you can manage your time and go, actually, how much do I need to do? I'll check my social media and answer emails between 6 and 7. 7 o'clock, the kids get up. And then it's kids. 9 o'clock, they go to school. And then you start your day. But you've also got fit fizz in there. So what he says is break it down in 30-minute blocks. Do deep work, deep concentration for 25 minutes and then have a 5-minute break. And the 5-minute break, don't pick up this social media machine called the phone and then start looking at things, because that's not resting your mind. Go for a walk outside. Do 20 press-ups or 5 press-ups or whatever you can do. Have a cup of tea and then shut off. Do a bit of mindfulness. My garden there with the birds flying around and squirrels and things. Sit out there and watch the clouds go past. After 5 minutes, that's your reward for 25 minutes work. Then you go back into it until you finish your thing. And what that does is helps you find that focus in order to get things done. But it takes practice. It could be like, I want to read more. Well, read 1 page. Can you read more? You've a lot of 25 minutes to this. I can. Now I'm bored. Okay, right. Tomorrow, do it again. And it's classical conditioning. It's like what you said, getting up and doing fizz all together. That's classical conditioning, which was a term coined by Ivan Pavlov in 1908, where we talked about this before, with the dog and the bell and the oxo. He got it to salivate, kept ringing the bell when he took the oxo away. That's conditioning. And it's really important, but you've got to link that to something important. So with the dog, it was an oxo cube or whatever, which made it salivate, and the food was important to the dog. Now, we're different from dogs. We've got a reason to get up in the morning, Marcus Aurelius says. If you find it hard to get up in the morning, remember that you are a human being and you have purpose. We have purpose. It's part of our mind. We're ambitious. We change the world. We fly to space. We invent microchips. There's a Pakistani guy who invented the sanitary towel for his wife. People look after their children. People cook and care for the elderly. That kind of stuff. We have purpose. A dog just gets up, gets fed. It's domesticated. But we have purpose. So find in that deep work, you can break it down. One of the things I've done, one for health, was, okay, I'm eating too much at breakfast. Now, physiologically, I eat too much for breakfast. It fills my stomach up. My stomach then fills with blood in the digestive process, and then it makes you tired because you're supposed to relax after the time you've eaten. So breakfast for me now is a spoonful of coffee, 10 to 12 grams of butter, proper butter, and then a teaspoon of coconut oil. And that basically is bulletproof coffee. And what I found with that is I take this drink, I sit outside, I look at the world, whilst kids are going crazy in the morning. I do that drink. That's me, satiated until 12 o'clock. 11 till 12 is a bit hardcore. And I start thinking about chocolate. But then I have a protein-rich diet. And what that does biologically is breakfast is important. People who would do intermittent fasting say, "Oh, try and keep the fast as long as possible so you go into ketogenesis and autophagy in your body to get rid of stuff." But if you wake up in the morning, you have a fat or protein-rich diet. What it does is it activates your pancreatic system and it sets the pancreatic and insulin for the rest of the day. So it's more balanced, so it's less spiky, which makes you erratic cognitively. And all you're trying to do is feed that sugar drop with quick active energy, glucose. Where do we get that from? Bread, carbs, and sugary things. So try and do that. You've had your breakfast in 5 minutes, and then you don't even think about food. I had these honking skin tags under my armpits. They're gone. I've had to put a hole in my belt, so I'm getting slimmer. I'm like 32-inch waist now, and I haven't been a 32-inch waist for 15 years. I've got more energy. I feel happier. My eyes are brighter.
I did think there's a sparkle there.
Absolutely. And I also got some probiotics. There's this stuff called, bloody hell, I forgot what it's called. VXL3, I think it's called. I've asked that up, but it's 450 billion bacteria. So I've got this thing called ulcerative colitis with regenerative bowel disease. So I looked on a Joe Rogan podcast. He's talking to a doctor called Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's fantastic. And she was talking about, so you've got lots of different type of bacteria in your gut. And as she's talking about it, I'm thinking, I've heard about the gut before by a guy called Mantak Chai, who's this Eastern, he's a sex guru, but he talks about other things as well. But I've also seen that from books when I was younger, where it talks about this is your second heart. So in Eastern philosophy, everything's in the gut. If you can sort your gut out, which is why diet's so important, everything else flows from it. You literally are what you eat, and it can affect you in great ways. So I got this, and you try it for 30 days, about 45 quid. I feel amazing. Those skin tags have gone. My skin feels better. I've got more energy. I'm less grumpy and less prone to like aggressive outbursts. And I don't mean aggressive outbursts as like, but my patience would wear thin if I was like, come on kids, time to brush your teeth, and then say it again for 100 times. And then I would find myself getting frustrated inside my own mind. Now I'm like, hey, whatever, man. Brush your teeth. The longer it goes, the longer you don't go and brush your teeth, you don't get a story. Okay. So I'm becoming a better person with that. And then you change your diet. So you make your own packed lunch rather than go and get something fast food. You put that preparation in. Or you go and... I'm going to get up and do a really quick Tabata or HIIT burst. And you literally only need to do 5 minutes. 5 minutes of burpees, 5 minutes of press-ups. Now that might extend to an hour, potentially. But it's about moving straight away. We said this before. Get up, make your bed, whack, something's done. Move. Motion breeds emotion, and it breeds the best type of emotion. Do some squats. Everyone can do a squat. In fact, squats will help your knees if you've got bad knees and a bad back. Everybody's got time. They're just not using it properly. And that's the greatest commodity in life. It's going to go. And suddenly you look back and be like, fuck, where's it all gone? I wish I'd saved more money when I was a young Marine instead of pissing up against the wall. I can't get that money back. It's gone. But what I can do is halt that train going into the avalanche-filled tunnel and turn it around and do something now. So I hope people try and do something now. I want to talk about depression. So, if that's all right.
Fire into it, buddy.
So I like I said before, on the 20th of March, I finished work. Boop, that's me. And I recently got divorced, which is amazing, the 12th of August. It's sad in that, unfortunately, relationships break down. But it's also great if anyone has been in divorce, where you find a sense of stress and gets lifted off your shoulders. And my wife and I are far more pleasant, my ex-wife and I are far more pleasant to each other now. And it's a better environment for the children when we interact and she comes to see them. And that's great. So life's better because of that. But it's a shame it happened. But so up to the point of that happening, and I didn't know whether I was going to be extended because of my back, because the Naval Service said they had no obligation, but some really great doctors and welfare and psychiatrists fought my corner. It's weird to say psychiatrist because it makes you feel like you're crazy, but you're not. They're specialists that will help you. So if I wanted to do a physical test, and I come and see you as a PTI. If I wanted my car fixed, I go and see a specialist. Now, depression is an ebb and flowing thing. And I found that with financial strains that I'd had from my marriage, the fact that I was by myself with the kids, the fact that I was on these painkillers, the fact that I didn't know what was happening in the future, whoa, savage. And my mood just dropped, and I wasn't eating right. If I was eating ever, I'd make the kids something, but I wouldn't make myself something, and then I'd just eat crap. And And I had 3 times where I'd hit these depressive states, and I didn't know. I don't think you know. And you've got to, in anything, you've got to understand that something's happening, which goes back to, you know, those people without that agility of thought who go, they think everything's okay, and they keep driving their life down this road off a cliff without even looking left and right for the turn off that takes them to paradise. And I had 3 episodes of what I would class as proper depression, and they lasted between 4 and 7 days. But it wasn't until it was sort of like 4 or 5 days into it that I realised this was happening. But just before that happened, I was feeling really low, and I had a big swimming pool set up in the back garden. I thought, okay, I'm going to jump in the swimming pool because it'd be cold. Wim Hof, cold stress hormones, cold stress proteins. I'll get cold and it will change my mindset. And I have cold showers anyway, so it's not like doing something extreme. And I got into the swimming pool and I lay in there, and I thought I'll go in for 5 minutes. And I set a timer on my watch. And I lay there, and as I lay there, I started to feel really low. And I was like, I could just, at night tonight, as it gets colder and the water temperature gets colder, put the swimming pool cover over, take 8 tramadol and 8 diazepam, which will mong me out. I'll cut my wrists and I'll lay in here and I'll send a WhatsApp message to my eldest daughter who's home. And this is, you know, we're talking about selfishness. Everything we do is selfish, but this is ultimate selfishness. But you can't tell somebody that is in a low state because they're stuck. They're absolutely stuck. They feel like they've got no way out. Their mind is full. I'll send a message saying, don't let the kids come in the back garden tomorrow morning. Can you take them to school? And somebody will find me. And I thought I'll just cut my wrists and just drift off into thing. I don't have to think about anything anymore. And then I was like, what the fuck? And I looked at my watch and it was like 10 or 15 minutes. And I realised then I was going through a serious depression, a spate of depression. So I told my doctors about this anyway. And then the other one was about 4 days long, and I was up in my bedroom. I looked out in the window and I've got some big trees in the back garden. And I thought, I'll go to work and get some black marlow. I'll just jump out one of these trees or jump off one of the bridges near town. And it was lucky for me that when I had these thoughts, was like, you've got depression. That's not a normal thought process. But there's so many people that we see on Facebook now, ex-service people, killing themselves. There was a husband and wife who about 6 minutes who done it, who don't get to that point. Like, we've got a mutual friend, ex-tanky, who hung himself. That got to that point and never asked for help. Luckily, I was open to engage with the right people. And I sat down and spoke to them. And they prescribed me some antidepressants. And initially I was like, I don't want antidepressants, they're for crazy people. And apparently you've got to take it forever. And then I came round to the idea where the doctor's like, these could really help. And what it does is it changes your serotonin levels. I was like, okay. Because what I wanted to do was have a balanced... I didn't want my idiosyncrasies and issues to then affect my children. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll give anything a go. I was really open to change, and I started taking these antidepressants, and I lasted 4 days. And I was like, no, these aren't for me. These aren't for me, because I'd already started mindfulness. I was swimming every day. I was eating right. I was reading these books. I was making time to sit down with the children and have fun, like Mario Kart with Sophie. Gosh, she's so competitive. And then sort of wrestling and tickling my boy and Sophie as well. And doing the things that I like to do. And what I found with these antidepressants, which will help lots of people, because depression's a sliding scale of severity and type, there really is variance in it, was that it was killing my emotion. So it was just like a zombie. You know, there was no joy. It was just all right. And after 4 days, I was like, fuck this. I am life. You know, I'm the embodiment of life, I feel, and cut them out. But it was a good experience to go through, because I realise, and that's where it comes to, you know, the time on that journey is people have to come to their own realisation. I realise that I don't need this, that I've got the answer to help me out. I still have problems with focusing on, you know, I've got my laptop bag up there and I could You know, I spoke about my teach, coach, mentor business, which has hit a standstill. Whereas I could work on anything for 25 minutes. So I need to listen to some of my own advice, and hopefully that will work. But depression right now, savage. Not for me. I'm in a really good position. Really, I feel great. But for a lot of people, especially in this lockdown, especially with the financial strains, I mean, we're okay. I mean, I'm on £47,000 a year, and I work 5 days a month at the minute. I mean, I do rehab every day, so I'm actually effectively working. And then you earn a very good wage as well. But there's some people in my local town who are losing their jobs. And, you know, they're not in good organisations like ours where they get help. They're just lost. And I think that's really worrying.
I think definitely with depression and things like that, I've got my personal view behind it is quite tainted a little bit, because I don't know whether I've ever experienced depression. I've been down at certain points, whether you call that depression because of certain pressures, I don't know. But I guess unless you've actually been through it yourself, you can't really like comment on it. Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking about suicide and, you know, the selfishness and stuff. That's my point of view. My wife, she works in clinical health, and she deals with people that have depression. They've got like 20 kids, exaggerated of course, but they've got a lot of kids. They don't have a lot of money. They're like, how am I going to survive from day to day? How am I going to deal with that? And, you know, she helps them with that, whether it's with clinical trials with drugs, or, you know, they were developing an app for self-harm a few years ago. Don't really know where that's gone with that. But she deals with these people and sees them from a day-to-day like business. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about when people kill themselves and people that just do it whimsical. You don't know whether there's anything wrong. There's one person that we were both in the same company with in the last couple of years, did that, and I was like, that guy was like, you wouldn't even have known. And I spoke mm-hmm. to some people that were really close to him, and they said that they had no idea that he was in that mental state either. And then I went through a series of thoughts of like, for me, I always tried to see two sides of the perspective, my side and somebody else, so his side and his family side, or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's just proper selfish. Like, he hasn't dealt with his own issues, his own whatever. He's gone and done that. And now everybody that's left behind has now going to feel sorrow, feel pain, feel strain, all these things that come with death that they shouldn't be feeling, because he or she was a healthy individual. Yeah. But then once she started talking to me about it and saying, well, you don't know what his actual mindset was going into that. What led up to that? Mm-hmm. You know, how did he feel? You know, he might have had something wrong with it. You know, his thyroid might have been down. Yeah. His hormone levels might have been shot all over the place. There's lots of chemical imbalances in the body that can absolutely shoot your brain to pieces. And unless you went to a doctor and you recognise that, then you wouldn't really necessarily know that you had something wrong with you.
Absolutely.
You just thought it was normal.
I know a lot of women get thyroid issues when they have babies, and then suddenly they put on loads of weight, which they attribute to having children, and then can't shift it. But it's the reduction in the thyroid gland producing the, I can't remember the name of the hormone. I'm going to say thyroid, but it's not. And it affects their mood, and it's all right. This is postnatal depression, which that's a cause because it affects your mood. But these are really, really narrow tolerances in which our body works. It's a fundamentally amazing machine, which is why when somebody goes, oh, they smoked all their life and then suddenly they dropped dead of cancer, they didn't suddenly drop dead of anything. Your body's that good to keep itself inside of these tolerances that something happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, going back to, you know, what we're talking about there with like the really horrible and the depths of mental health is that some people hide it really well. And like you say, I think, is it a sexist thing to say that males hide it more than females do? Females are more open when they're talking with their friends than blokes are. Blokes are more like surface layer. When you talk about a layering system of sort of like your psyche, your psychology, you always talk about the surface layer stuff. What was the football result for? What did you do last week? Oh, you know, what did you do for Fizz? What was your last circuit? Like, there's no sort of like depth to the conversation unless you really know that person intimately. But even if you do know somebody intimately, there is no, they're not necessarily going to completely open up to you, especially if they're a quite reserved person and not, you know, out there. And they like talking about things because, you know, again, we talked about this last time where society, British society, is very closed. Whereas like we don't like to talk about our thoughts and feelings, where let's just say you take an extreme in American where they just don't stop talking and they're like that. Hey man, I'm so happy, you know, but are you? Again, you know, talking about layers, people say that they're super happy. They might not be. But then that also comes down to social media as well. We all know people on social media that post all these pictures about saying, oh, look, my life is so amazing. But then as soon as you've pressed send and you go back to it and your life is evolving around people coming back with you to say, I like what you're saying, or, oh, good for you, well done. And you're like, oh, well, actually people like paying attention to what I'm doing, and that kind of gives you that endorphin release where you're like,
yeah, absolutely,
you know, oh, you know, someone's happy that they can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, I've got 200 likes.
But then, you know, as soon as that phone goes or puts down to one side, or they got kids, 10 minutes later they're in the kitchen making chips and fish fingers and peas, or they're making some sort of meal for their kids, and reality kicks back in, and then, you know, the whole cycle of the mental health issue where they're like, the kids go to bed and they go, fuck me. Is this what my life has come to?
Absolutely. I mean, I've just written down here, re-engage with your hopes and dreams as a child. So the dichotomy of that is, in order to live that happy life, reconnect with the things that you wanted to do that made you happy as a child. So I play board games and card games with the kids. I'm by myself, and I play little silly war games and paint little models and stuff. But one, I like it because it's an element of competition and strategy, but also it's a time for me to be silly. And one of the things that I found in my life was I took myself too seriously. I was always kind of an outsider. You know, I'd engage with people, but I was always my own person, kind of a lone wolf. Go out on the piss, but after about an hour or so, then I'd just do my own thing. Even as a kid, my son's exactly like this, and I'm trying to help him come out of his bubble. Like school discos, I always felt like a fraud, that I shouldn't be there. I wasn't part of the group.
I'm still the same now.
Yeah, and it can affect you, you know. So re-engage with these hopes and dreams as a child in order to find where you're happy. Look, with this stuff, you can't help everyone, but what you can do is start somewhere. So I think something really good would be to be in schools and start mindfulness for children. And it doesn't have to be all hippie and like, ooh, you know, chanting and that type of meditation. But it's like, what makes you happy? Just asking a series of questions. What makes you happy? What do you want to be? How are you going to do it? How do you know when you've got there? How are you going to feel when you've got there? That visualizing technique that Alexi down at Limpson used to tell us for the coaching and mentoring course. Visualize your future, then you'll get there. And that part with the selfish impact of suicide, there are two things that are sure in this life. One is life, and one is death. And everything else, and people say taxes as well, but everything else is just inconsequential, because they're the two greatest emotional experiences that any of us will have. Seeing new life, because we don't see our own birth, but we see the birth of our children, fundamental. And then the death of the people in our social groups, savage. And whether you commit suicide before your natural time, the emotional impact is still magnificently great. The only problem with suicide is they ask lots of questions. Could I have done something? What was wrong? Did I really know this person? Oh no, now I'm stuck in this position of like, who's going to pay the mortgage? What am I going to do? Well, that's kind of no different from the end of life, but you would have paid mortgages and set up your life to continue after you're gone. But it's so abrupt. And there's a couple of people in my local area who've committed suicide, who's civilians, and their friends were saying that they are just outgoing, great people, and then suddenly, boom. And it's shocking. But
it's also the flip side of life, though, as well. Like what we're talking about there with the idea that people post pictures and they say that their life's amazing. So these people, you know, you do get people that have fronts. Mm-hmm. Do these people, when you're around them and they're all like, you know, these extroverted people, they're pushing their persona out there. They say, oh, you know, Smudgy's the crazy guy in the gang, you know. But then when he goes home and he's on his own, oh my God, that was so much energy. Yeah. You're like, oh, I don't really want to go out there and do that. But then they go out and then the big personality.
Yeah,
again.
It's living your life in terms of an ego, and an ego is generated by what you watch on TV or what clothes you're supposed to wear, what group identity you're supposed to belong to. Well, you can belong to a group if you want, but your group identity is you, humanity, those fundamental things that we all share. My daughter made a really great comment. So she was privileged enough to go to private school when she was younger, which is one of the facilities that the military do so we can move around and do our job. So she went to private school. And when she at uni, she'll speak to people and they'll say, "Did you go to private school?" And she'll go, "Yeah." And they went, "Oh, that must have been bad." Well, no, it's amazing, you know. And she thinks I should send Sophie and Sam to private school. I can't afford it, but I see the benefits in it. And what you find at the private school is the smaller classes, so it's easier. I mean, it's privilege if you can do it, and who wouldn't do it if they could do it? But what you found is people weren't so worried about a group identity or pretending to be somebody. But then we took her out of school for the private school, the GCSEs, to move with us into Kent. And she went to a normal mainstream school. And what she saw there was there were so many people just living a fake life and speaking in a way that wasn't truly them. They were just living up to what they think they're supposed to be. And that's what's happening, like you said, with people. Oh, look at me. Oh, I'm happy, but now I'm going to go and make chips. Well, their problem comes in that their life doesn't fit what they thought it was going to be. And what they can't do is then find different avenue to go down to get that. So we should never have, how can I get that? Oh, is that right? I might have got that wrong. But there's one of the things where you say, if it's like Grant Cardone says, it's not how can I get that? It's what can I do to get that?
Yeah, so it's needs and wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I actually need that thing, or do I want it?
Oh,
or do I actually need it too?
It's must, shoulds, and coulds. What must I have? I must pay the bills. I must feed the children. I must clothe the children. The kids must go to school. I must spend time with my wife as a couple. I must do things, stay healthy and help everyone else. And I must be a valued part of the community. I should buy a new surfboard because this one's a bit dinged. I should get a new car because this one's paint's faded.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, I could, I don't know, buy a £5,000 watch. You don't need a £5,000 watch. You just need a watch. You don't even need a watch. Just have a clock in your house and you got it on your phone. But what he says is, along with not how can I get that? Because it already puts a barrier up in front of you. How can I do that? How can I do that? How can I pay this bill? Rather, more proactive mindset, which is, what can I do to get that? Get another job. Start a podcast. Start a YouTube channel and try and monetize it. Start a business. Loads of people in the local group, Facebook group here in Chivner, on the patch, there's loads of people with little businesses, little side businesses, and it's a great time to do it. So, the housing market's really expensive. I can't get a deposit. Well, that's you shut out. You've already put the barrier in there. Not, what can I do to get that deposit? Okay, maybe I'll get another job. Maybe we'll cut down all these bills. Do I need Netflix? I don't need HD, so I'll put it down to $7.99 a month. Or do I need all these movie channels and sports channels? No. How much do you watch them? Do I need my Spotify? Do I need my Audible? I cancelled Audible, and then Audible came back and said, "You want 3 months for £3.99?" Yes, please. So now I've halved that bill for 3 months. I'll just cancel it again, and they'll do the same thing. Do I need to pay £160 a month for gas and electric with whatever company I pay with? No, search around. Use one of these money box tools, or one of these things that searches for you. And in that, you find the solution. And just takes a little bit of time and effort. And that's where that time management comes down, where you do the deep think on the problem at the hand. And you might not come up with a solution, but you then come back to it. What's the priority? My priority today is this, this, and this. Choose 4 things. Choose 3 things. Choose 1 thing. Get it done. Because it's the same idea as making your bed in the morning. You're achieving something. And, that iceberg is massive and only a small bit showing, which is that ego. But it's the one that when the Titanic was sailing, they just thought it was a little bit of ice, but not this giant iceberg that takes down the entire ship, which is subsurface, that you don't see. That's the biggest part of the iceberg that's underwater. And that's the part of our minds and ourselves that we really need to look after.
I think
a tiny bit on the outside.
I think when we grow up, when we're younger, modern day society, and it might be cliche, I don't know, we're kind of, when we go through the school system and the way that maybe our parents were brought up, the way that they bring us up is very, this is the line you need to toe. You need to go to school. You need to go and get your GCSEs. You need to, well, if you want a good job, you've got to go and do your A-levels. Or if you want to be successful, you maybe need to go to university and get a degree and do this and that. Well, we know plenty of people that didn't do any of that, and they're very successful people now. But I think if you're not in a position, like we're going to talked about earlier about mental health, where if you're open to all of these things, where you're open to meditation, or you're open to mindfulness, or just going taking time out for yourself for 5 minutes or whatever, if you're not open to those sort of things and you're very closed and narrow-minded, then I think it's really difficult, like you're saying, where I've just been sacked from my job, where am I going to get another job from?
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities out there that all you just need to do is just take a matrix comment now, expand your mind.
Absolutely.
You just need to think, and another cliche term, think outside the box.
Yeah.
Think about what you want to do. Think about, how do I need to do that to go and achieve it? This podcast, for instance, I was thought about it for probably about a year.
Yeah.
And then, a few months back, I'm like that, okay, I'll buy some microphones.
Yeah.
Right, who wants to do it with me? Oh no, I'll give Tomo. He's got nothing to do at work. He'll talk to me.
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, now settle these things up, and now it's kind of expanded in these 11 to 12 episodes more than I ever thought it would do.
Yeah.
But it's also because I've kind of thought outside the box, and I've messaged lots of people, talked to lots of people. It's actually made me more of an interactive person, and made me think about. Again, this is going to be selfish, made me think about my own issues a little bit more. So talking to you about, like during this, about philosophy, and I had no idea that you had these like mental issues and stuff. But I think what this podcast does, and when I start talking to people, is that it kind of opens you up to the conversation where you're thinking about something. And I'm really bad for it, because I slow down when I'm really, really thinking about something, which probably everyone who listens to this knows, because I'm trying to be constructive in what I'm trying to put across. But what's going on in my head is not necessarily what you would talk to somebody in day-to-day life, which, is helping me a great deal. It's probably the person sitting the opposite side of the table. And going back to sort of like thinking outside the box, well, this for me is, I've never really been the talker. I've never really been the type of person. I'm a bit of a gobshite, but talking about different people's experiences, because for me, this is like developing also my own little skill set.
Yeah.
And I've kind of just done it because I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see where it goes. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, whatever. But I've started to make it work for me. You know, I'm putting it out on different platforms. I'm talking to different people. So my point kind of being is that you don't necessarily just have to isolate yourself into one path. You need to start thinking about, what can I do to not achieve? What can I do to, one, make myself happy, but two, achieve what I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then think about that direction. Think about drawing lines. So you've got your main life line that you draw. So from when you're born to when you die, that's a straight line. Yep, it's never going to change direction because that's the line that your life's going to take. But then if you think of like the branches of the trees that we were talking about last time, during that line, you're going to have branches that come off. Oh, I'm going to try karate. No, that was shit. Oh, I'm going to go and try a swimming competition. Oh, that didn't really work anyway. Oh, okay. I'm going to go and try, I don't know, writing a book. Well, that's going to go a lot further because I'm good at writing. I found something that I'm good at now. Oh, let's expand it. Okay. Maybe let's try and go and find a publisher. Oh, I tell you what, I could be a publisher. And then the little branch comes off that. And you see where I'm going with this?
I mean, I like that because it goes back to that, the time you take on the journey rather than the journey itself. Because if you went from point A to point B on that flat line, it would take X amount of time. But if that line then branches out like a tree or roots, I like the idea, well, tree idea, it points to the sky, blue sky thinking, think outside the box. But I also like the analogy of roots because it makes you more stable as well. It's solid foundation. If you keep going down these little avenues of trying new things, which is investing in yourself, because you know you're getting more information from speaking to different people about their different experiences, which is making you think, or it's providing you with more information, which may make you more peaceful or make you more understanding. So you invest in yourself as a social creature in that shared experience. But that takes more time. You're still doing the same journey, but you're taking more time doing it. And if you can have more time, which is relative,
or making time, like what we're talking about. So I'm making time to do this.
Yeah, I mean, the time is relative to you. So if you're doing more things, actually you don't have more time, but it feels like you have more time. In Einstein's theory of relativity, a object moves from point A to point B, and its mass increases as it goes, but its mass only increases relative to itself rather than to whoever's observing it. So the time feels like it's getting more mass for you as you're doing different things. So it means it feels like you're living a more fulfilled, longer life. But in actuality, to everyone else watching, it's still the same time. But one of the things with the theory of relativity, an example is when a train moves past, somebody sat on a hill watching the train. They see it moving from point A to point B and it doesn't change in its state, but it actually changes its state as it's going past. But the analogy for me is the person just sat there watching is doing nothing with their time, and it's going at the normal pace. Whereas that train's moving fast, it has mass, it has momentum, it has velocity on the track that it's going. But if it didn't have tracks and it was like the Polar Express train, you could go anywhere it wanted, what could it do? Invest in yourself. Luck is preparation and opportunity meeting at the right place. So where's this going to go? Don't know.
I have no idea.
Right person listens to it, could go anywhere. But if the right person doesn't listen to it, I mean, I bought some stuff to make drone videos and some other things. Mostly when I was pissed, sort of like at 11 o'clock at night. And then I went onto eBay or Amazon and started looking at it. And then you wake up and you're like, oh. 2 days later, some cameras rock up. And you think, oh, I've got this now. I'll try that out. Or I'll try video editing. I didn't know how to do that before. It's like when I started my ex-wife's massage business. I didn't know how to be self-employed or start a business or register a business with Company's House or trademark like my business name. I didn't know how to get a unique tax reference number. But do you know what? It's fucking easy. Little bit of like, read through this, ask some people some questions, find those experts. It's like Tony Robbins says, if you are hanging around with a crappy group, or well, say it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, say if you're training with white belts all the time and you never try to train with a black belt and you're a blue belt or whatever. I think do you start with a blue belt? White belt. And you're a blue belt and you're never training with better people, you're not going to get any better. So center yourself around the best possible people you can. Go surfing with people who are better than you, because they'll look at you, because everybody wants to help each other, and they'll look at you and go, oh, actually, mate, what you're doing is you're dragging your foot, and that's causing you to become unbalanced and not have a stable position. Try doing it like this. And they'll paddle over and go, right, I'll watch you for a bit. Yeah, no, move that like that. Wow, now you're standing up and surfing. Oh shit, I'm doing what I want. And I'm doing it better than I thought I could do it. So find the right people. Don't know how to do anything, go online. There'll be coaches everywhere. Or you just ask a question. So today, what did I do? I made something the other day for my girlfriend, who's originally from Bosnia. And I was like, I want to make something from Bosnia.
Did you make an origami flower?
Yeah. I've carved this lettuce into a bird. And I made these things called cevapi, which are like lamb and beef mince with garlic and some peppers in it. Essence. Well, nobody makes them around here. So what do you need to do that? Go online, get a food hygiene certificate, 20 quid. Hoofing, fail the exam, keep doing it until you pass it, get a certificate. Brilliant. Now what do I need to do? Well, I need a street trader's license or a pavement license. How much that cost? Don't know. 100 quid. Can I invest £100 on myself? Bloody right I can. I'll spend £100 on anything. Or if I don't have £100, I'm going to save up £5 a week until I've got £100. There's my goal. Then what do I need to do? I need to find a place to do it. Well, I need the equipment to do it. How much does that cost? Well, brand new, these frying things, electronic frying things are this much. Can't afford the generator. Oh no, there's a pannier market in most towns. I'll go there. How much does that cost? It costs £9 a day. Do you have electricity? Yeah, just bring an extension lead. Plug. Sit there making these things. And there's a business. You don't have to register for self-employed until like I think you can 3 years, I think it is. I might be talking out my backside. You certainly don't have to do a tax return for 3 years when you can claim everything that you've invested already. So if this became a business, you just keep all your receipts for that, these microphones, that S-key thing, and you claim the tax back later on. Now, I didn't know that initially until I spoke to my friend who owns a gym, who'd gone through all that shit before. And that's the key with information. That's what's so fundamental about sitting down and talking to people. All the information's already there. Like in philosophy, they say, modern guys who write books about philosophy, they say that information about how do you live your life is already there. Those people like Socrates, Plato, Zeno, Epictetus, Seneca, Aurelius, and Eastern philosophers as well, they've already thought about it over thousands of years. You don't have to do the hard work yourself. I mean, if you wanted to do this, you could just put an iPhone down or a Galaxy like mine and press record. Yep. And everybody's got one. So everybody has got the capacity to do one. This is what's so fundamental about, which is amazing about technology now. It makes difficult things easy. Seneca says, it's not because things are difficult that we don't dare. It's because that we do not dare that they are difficult. And that's really rings true. The people who are successful are the people who take measured risks. But they take risks. The people who don't achieve are the ones that don't take risks. And unfortunately nowadays, we've had a varied career, but lots of people start off and they do the same thing with no hope for promotion. How fucking boring is that life? How happy are you going to be? What's the effect of everyone else around you when you're unhappy? So if you can't do anything about your employment, but it does the musts, then the coulds, which are equally as important, especially if, do you want to buy something? Yeah. Do you need it? No. But do you really want it? Yeah, I really want it. Why do you really want it? Because I want to do this. Does that make you happy? Yeah, it does. Because me, Ads Lyson, who does loads of things anyway, fills all his bills with his job, and his wife does as well, and they raise their children, and they're setting up for the future. But this will be your 12th podcast. Whereas 12 podcasts ago, there was no podcast. All you did was dare, maybe with some beer, buy these, plug it into a computer and practice yourself. I do it with board games. So I don't know how to play it. Then I get it out and I sit on one side of the table and I do it. And then I go to the other side of the table and do it. And then I wait for friends to come around and I go, do you want to play this game? But I've done the preparation in order to explain it to them, to invest in myself because I want to play games. And then they play games. So dare, go out and dare. Don't dare with all your family's money so that you're going to ruin yourself, but dare, because nothing is that difficult.
I hate it when people talk about, they wish they'd done this or they wish they'd done that. And why wouldn't you just go and do it?
Yeah.
And then their comeback would be, well, I need to do this. I've got responsibilities. I've got to pay the bills. I can't do it. I haven't got enough money, or, I'm going to say there's an excuse. Excuse is quite harsh, especially this modern time where you do have certain responsibilities. But then, we're talking about risks. Well, why not take that risk and go, well, do you know what? If I don't try, then I'm never going to know.
Absolutely.
And if I don't try and I'm never going to know, then I'm going to be stuck in this job that I don't particularly enjoy in the first place. I'm doing it because it pays well, but then it's going to make me miserable on the flip side. And that's one of the things I'm scared of in a couple of years' time when I end up leaving. If and when I end up leaving in a couple of years, is the fact that, yes, I'm making plans now to start a new business, my own business, when I leave, but it's also the uncertainty. But I've said this a few times now. I did a neurolinguistic programming lecture with a guy called Paul Cole. God bless you, Paul Cole. I know you listen to this. And it's the only one I've ever listened to. But something he said held true was, and he was talking about competing. He said, when you go to a competition, do you feel nervous or are you scared? Are you excited or are you scared? Are you excited or are you scared? And we were sat there and I was like, I don't really know. Probably if it's a big competition, you're scared. Probably more scared than excited. Are you excited or are you scared? Well, it's the same feeling. Being scared and being excited is the same emotion. It's the same endorphin release. But you're mentally telling yourself, depending on what situation you're in, you're almost programming your brain to tell you that because of the systematic things we've been through in life, that this is my automatic response. I'm scared to do that, but I'm still going to do it anyway. But you're not scared. You're excited because you're going to a competition. You don't know whether you're going to win. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's the same thing with, taking the grip of doing something different. Yeah, it is going to be scary. It's scary for me to even think about leaving because, I've been in the military since I was 18 years old. I don't know anything different. I did a couple of labouring jobs before I joined up. Got my GCSEs, even though my teachers told me that I would never do it, but I did. But when I leave, what qualifications am I going to have? I used to blow shit up and fire big machine guns. There's no qualification there. I've been a PTI for nearly 15 years. I want to do something different. I've worked in gyms. I've set up upper teen circuits. I'm good at it. Okay, I have got something potential I can fall back on, but I want to do something different. And yes, it is a scary prospect to go and do something like that. But unless you invest in yourself and you take, the bull by the horns and you have courage as well, because courage is a big thing, and it's not a learned thing. You have to mentally prepare yourself to do it. I don't know what's going to happen. I might start this business up and it might fail, but at least if I try and it does fail, I know that I tried and I can go and do something else.
The thing is, when you fail, you get key learning points from that experience that you can then reinvest into whatever you're going to do next. And, being comfortable is the surest way to a heart attack. It makes you lazy. Nobody has to work at putting on weight. It just happens naturally if you stay in that comfortable state. You have to work hard. And how, in this side, how bad can it be? And I know some people have it really bad, but how bad can it be? If you read anything by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who wrote a lot about the Gulag Archipelago. So in Siberia, where the communists, socialists took everybody out to work them to death, you read any of these books, this is bad. This is hell on earth for people. For us, we're nowhere near that. You've got to contextualize things into their proper point in reality and perspective in order to know where you are and what you're doing. It's all blown out. You see on the media now, everything's blown out of proportion. Everything's all right. No one, 99.99% of people aren't being persecuted at all in the West. Not like in other countries. We're doing all right.
It's your contextual bubble, though.
Yeah.
Is, and this is going to sound really bad, whatever happened to those people in that book? Let's take concentration camps, for instance, in the Second World War, the worst of humanity for that time. There's obviously worse things that happen, in history, but let's take that as a context. For those people during that time, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to them. But we talked about conditioning. Once that's happened to them, they are then conditioned to what's going to be happening day to day with those sort of people. Let's bring that into context with modern day life.
Can I so from what you said there, that answers the thing with Stockholm syndrome, where you become a captive and then you start to admire and love your kidnappers. So I read a book by a guy called Thomas Ashbridge. I think it's called like The Crusade. And it was about the Third Crusade. I think it was 1098. And it's talking about Christian nuns who were captured by the Saracens and Saladin. And then they escaped, went back to the Crusaders. And then escaped the Crusaders and went back to their captors because they'd fallen in love with them and grown used to that thing. I mean, how truthful that is, you don't know, because it's history and how history is written by specific people. But yeah, we are conditioned. We can condition ourselves to hardship. I mean, I'm reading another book called A Spiritual Path to Ninja. Oh yeah. Doesn't mean I want to be a ninja, but what the ninjas used to do was condition themselves mentally and physically for their environment in order to take what is around them and what they have inside them to get what they want. So it wasn't all about martial arts, but it was about finding their path of enlightenment by conditioning themselves with the environment.
So that point that you're bringing up there, and if we take that back to what we're talking about with mental health as well, and again, it's one of the things I think I've previously talked about. I keep saying that on this podcast. Oh, we've talked about this before.
Yeah. Keep talking about it. It's conditioning.
It is the fact that if you do find yourself in a state where you have got, you feel like you're going down the wrong path, you need to find a focal point to work it on. Now, using martial arts as a good example, because it is pretty key because you have to concentrate on something. It's taking you outside of your own personal environment and you're concentrating on the moment let's say karate, for instance, you're concentrating on a set kata. And for that moment, for that 45-minute to hour session or whatever you're doing, you're solely concentrating mentally on what you're doing. So when we were talking about you need to set yourself some time for yourself, that is you setting some time to one side for yourself because you're not thinking about day-to-day life. And when you get guys that don't feel like they have an avenue to sort of like vent anything, where they start drinking and they start, violence, start fights and all that sort of thing. I guess in a way, from my perspective or a outsider's perspective, they don't have a focal point to re-energize or refocus that energy. And, if you feel or you're listening to this and you're in that situation when you don't have a focus and you feel, your mental capacity is all over the place, you just need to fixate on something, spend a couple of hours. And again, being, what's the word? Not selfish. I'm quite biased with surfing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Again, very selfish, pastimes. However, they're very addictive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get a bug for surfing, you catch that first wave, you stand up, brilliant. You know, you're like that, right? How can I recreate that again?
Yeah.
And again, there's your focal point right there, because you're setting off that hormone release to want to learn how to do something. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, exactly the same, a little bit more physical though, because you're rolling around with somebody else. But
I mean, I think the key points for those is, I think they're kind of healthy, because what you're doing is you're searching for that endorphin hit, which is the chemical that allows us to feel happy. So, but with surfing or something that you do outside, you're riding nature. You're in nature. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're socially interacting with somebody and you're physically doing things. So it's good connection. Say if you love like kicking the ball with your son, or well, I love tickling. You could tickle Sophie all day long. She loves it. But I get an endorphin hit off that. That's great. But if you get an endorphin hit off social media or drinking or something like that, that's not really in touch with.
Well, it's escapism.
Yeah, it is.
It
doesn't connect with anything.
No,
apart from a chemical.
You're escaping with what your problems are, but you're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, okay, going to throw myself around on some waves is dealing with the problem, or, you know, going training, doing something is dealing with a situation, but it's refocusing your mind onto something different. Whereas if I turn on social media, 90% of it is negative. News, people getting jumped, fights, people putting self-images up of them saying, oh, look how beautiful I am. You're then automatically looking at them going, I'm not as beautiful as they are.
Yeah.
Negative. Everything's negative. Whereas like if you take your time and you put that down, get rid of that, refocus your energy somewhere else that doesn't involve that. I think that's a really healthy thing to do. And you think, you know, I was talking about this down at the beach earlier today, that the human instinct and human nature is not designed to be sat behind a desk. It's not designed to be constantly doing mundane jobs. You don't have this fantastic brain that's got all this different stuff going on inside your head just to sit behind a desk or sit in a factory moving. You know, like I did a job taking one windscreen out of a crate and putting it into another one. Absolutely mind-numbing. There's so much stuff out there that you can refocus your mind on and take your mind off things that will, you know, inevitably help you. Which when you were talking about earlier about your mental strains and stuff like that. Refocusing energy is very, very important.
Oh, hugely. I mean, life is cyclic. So we have this thing called the circadian rhythm in our body, which is a natural state in which your body's active and then goes into a rest state. Now, we mitigate that rest state by drinking coffee or cracking on with work wherever you work, or drinking or eating sugar to give you those energy spikes. But we're supposed to rest every 90 minutes. You know, there's a reason why we have life on this planet, and that's because the Earth circles the sun every 24 hours, which allows, and ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B lights, which created life with no ozone, the ozone layer, and blah, blah, blah. But we need to rest and rejuvenate, which is why sleep's so important. But because our days are so much longer now from the natural way that civilization started. So if you watch something like Apocalypto, which is a brilliant film, but it's also horrendously brutal. But what you do see is you see these Indians or native people in South America going out hunting and then come back and rest and play with their family. Now, if you watch documentaries, you'll see that when they wake up, they don't really have a lot of breakfast, or they have breakfast and they won't have lunch. But a lot of their time is spent dozing. The Spanish do it well with siestas. They have that break at lunchtime, which then rejuvenates them for the rest of the day. Now, you can do that through mindfulness. We can do through it with hobbies. So the great thing about hobbies is you're thinking about that single task. What you're doing is you're focusing on your prefrontal lobe, which is allowing the rest of your brain to relax. But if you're stressing yourself, those stressors create hormones, stress hormones, that I think it's the hypothalamus that controls temperature, but some parts of your brain. I need to do more neuroscience. But if you're constantly stressing your entire system, it can't function. You've got to have that break. And once you have that break, you can handle anything. So that's where timeliness comes in. And what I was finding, I want to get back to me leaving the Corps and then you eventually leaving the Corps, is that uncertainty of leaving. Oh my God. One day I was one thing. The next day I'm not going to be that thing that was so fundamentally important. That's really scary when it happens. Now, you've done the right thing and start with your massage and starting business ideas. I didn't, because I was my days were so full as a single parent and being a sergeant major that I didn't prepare enough. I'd done loads of courses before. You know, I could just go into working abroad, but I can't do that with kids. Whereas when I was married, I could do that with kids. But then I found myself on my own. I was like, fuck, how am I going to do this? How am I going to work this out? And what I was saying to myself was, how can I do this? Not, what do I need to do that? And that's the same with that depression thing, whereas you don't realise where you are. But when you do realise where you are, you change from the how can I to the what can I do? And that's the state that I'm in now. But leaving the military, that's like, I know some people have lost parents. I'm a child of divorced parents, so I've effectively lost my father when I was 4. He never bothered being a proper role model or even being in mine and my sister's life. But what you find is, and my psychiatrist said that when I thought I'd had some level of PTSD, but it wasn't. It was just a lot on my mind. And he said I've got something called John Thompson disorder, which made me laugh. And it was effectively, I'm losing a second father because the protective figure, male role model figure, i.e. the military, because especially the Royal Marines and commandos, it's male dominated completely. That's going. And it's my hand is coming out that bucket, and it's going to settle back to what it should be, but my hand won't be in the bucket anymore. So what bucket do I put my hand in? So semiotically, I'm looking around for symbols or things to do, or other buckets to put my hand in, but I don't know what bucket I can do, because 5 big guns, kill Taliban.
That's what we were talking about there. So, you know, you don't know what bucket to put your hand in. Well, go and fucking put your hand in lots of buckets.
Because we don't know what the world's like.
Yeah,
we don't, and that's a real issue, and that's why you see military guys on the streets. They don't know how to function. Because I mean, like all industries, it's go 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 go. We've got to achieve 150%, or we'll set 150% as a target. And if we achieve 100%, that's great. That's what we really wanted to do in the first place. Well, how about you set 100%? And achieve 100%, because you're using half of that, a third of that more energy, producing a shit product, or a less than adequate, satisfactory product, when you could take 33% of that energy, feed it back in, which potentially could be more fizz together. It could be professional and personal development. It could be anything. You feed that 33% in that you've made up back into the system, and you feed it in by not taking it out, and you achieve a better product. And if you can't do that, and you're not in the driver's seat of the organisation, but you are in the driver's seat of yourself, you feeding that back in is by taking that time out to do something you want to do, or to sit quietly somewhere. Like I said before, Pascal said all of humanity's problems lie in man's inability to sit quietly in a room. You feed that back into the system by taking that time out and rejuvenating. I used to sleep for like 3 hours a day. 11 o'clock, I'd be like, I feel fucked, because I was stressed. And I'd go up to bed, I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up exhausted still, wanting to go back to sleep. Like, I'll pick the kids up, I've got to make them dinner. And then I'll be like, oh, please go to bed, because I'm tired. And then I'd get them to bed, and then I'll be like, bing, I'm awake again. And then I'll wake up till 2. And I got into this positive feedback loop of poor sleep. And then I started to lie in my bed and just relax I think I said this before, but think about different parts of my body and it will warm up, and then I'd like do this endorphin rush, and then I'd do this sort of breathing exercise, and then I'd be like hold my breath, I'd go all tingly, see how long I can hold my breath for. It was like 2.5, 3 minutes. And then afterwards I was rejuvenated because I'd taken time out. Even just saying like inner mantras, you're strong, you're powerful, it might be bollocks, but you create this inner mantra of you're good, you're these positive affirmations, and it'll have a great effect. And that's how you feed the energy back into the system without taking it from somewhere else or stealing time or using resources. You have, like I said at the beginning of this, you have everything inside you that you need. You just got to work out what you want. And that takes that Pascal sitting in a room quietly to work out what it is that you want, what makes you happy. If you took all the shit away, if you took all the clothes away, what's fundamentally important? You know, because you're a husband and father. It's your family first. Your children and your wife. I said this to my somebody the other day who asked me, where do I sit in your life? And I was like, well, no, there's no priority over anything. It's all my hand. So my hand's got 5 fingers. One of those fingers is my children. The other ones is say it was my partner. Another one is something else. Another one is something else. They're all part of the same hand. They're just different things that all have the top level of priority. And if you work out what those 5 things are, or one thing is that makes you happy because you achieve that priority, then you're going to be a happy person. Yeah,
mate, some serious deep shit.
Yeah,
mate, we're gonna have to cut it there, I reckon, because you gotta go and pick your kids up.
I do. Yeah, I've got to go and be daddy and make blow up party balloons for Sophie. And
mate, we could go on for hours with this, couldn't we? Mate, thank you for coming
on
again.
Mate. Pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot, and there's some good thinking points from all this, I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, John, cheers, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, lads.
And that's it. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on your podcast provider, and also follow the Grumpy Surfer on Instagram. Thank you for listening.